Now we'll hear our dear friends from Moscow 7 who will prepare us toward the lesson with Rabash, please.
Yes, dear friends, we're very happy to see you all. You're all sitting like we're in the Congress, and actually it's kind of worthwhile to change place sometimes, and in this part of the lesson we want to start with great fear and great excitement and gratitude. Gratitude to our Rav, how he connects us to his teacher, his Rav, and how he really passes on to us all of this material. These lessons with Rabash are just unbelievable. It's such a great gift. And we're preparing ourselves for these lessons with great fear, spiritual fear. And that's how Rav connects us to Rabash, to his channel, to the connection to Ein Sof, to the Creator. And how he says that the Shekhinah speaks through Rabash's throat. Just imagine, friends, what is it that we're facing? What are we studying in the coming hour? We are facing the Shekhinah, facing the opportunity to make a correction. And on our part, all that's required is to listen to Rabash, to learn how to listen, to try to look for ways to be closer and closer to him.
Yes, we're now facing the place where we discover with great fear and concern. It's as if we weren't ready for it. And why did we receive it specifically now? It's a rhetorical question, but it's a fact. We just need to see how we survive these lessons. And I need to see how much it depends on me, how I add responsibility toward everyone. Let's aim ourselves that this place is intended for us to add in this effort as we work with the light and bestowal. So we'll be closer to this work so it can work on us. So let's unite, connect to that lineage of Kabbalists, Rabash, Rav, and friends. Each of us now can be in that place, at that point of connection between us and with the Creator. As we heard Rav say a few minutes ago, tell Vlad, the Creator brought us to the right place. And he tells each of us, take this. Now, if you don't take it, you'll never take it. The Creator gave us all the conditions. Let's use them. So with the help of the Creator, let's take these conditions together.
Thank you so much, dear friends. We will very soon join Rabash, and we will read from the study of the 10 Sfirot. We are in volume 1, chapter 4. We will join inner light item 50. It starts from, it has been clarified that Malchut is incorporated with the Reshimot. Before we start the study, we will read item 6 from the words of the Ari.
After all the departure, all the lights returned to their place besides the light of Keter. And then there was a clash from the record of Keter and the light of Chokhmah in one another. And two vessels came up, one for Keter, one for Chokhmah, which is male and female in the Rosh of Ab of Ak. However, after the reception of these Sfirot from the Emanator, they return to their place, besides Keter. And then the vessel of Keter was not made only on the return, because when Chokhmah re-entered it, the light of Chokhmah struck the record that Keter left in its place, and these were twofold strikes, or according to the record of Keter, as it is a higher phase than Chokhmah, it therefore strikes Chokhmah and elicits sparks, and Chokhmah too, since it comes now from above and stands on the record, and it is higher than it. Therefore, now it struck the record and elicited other sparks. Therefore, now two vessels were made, one for the record of the Keter and one for Chokhmah that came now. We've already elaborated on that in a different place, how there is male and female in Keter. And these are the two that we mentioned here, which are the record and the Chokhmah. And now Rabash.
But
what's the question? What does Malchut have? One face, or the first 9, or 10 Sfirot? The first 9 and the 10 Sfirot are the same. I divide them not in the vessel. So we should say this. Malchut, which has the first 9 before her, and it's called light and vessel. The first 9 without Malchut is called light. It doesn't matter where she is. And Malchut is called vessel. And the difference between the Guf, the body, and the Rosh, the head, is that Malchut of the Rosh is not called vessel. She doesn't receive, whereas Malchut does receive. The distinction is the distinction of the level. Since each level that comes must clothe in the 10 Sfirot, which light clothes in the 10 Sfirot of each and every degree? This depends on the coarseness of the screen. Accordingly, what we learn here, it follows that on the first 9, on the lights, there was no restriction. The restriction was only on the vessel. A vessel is forbidden to receive. And we say the first restriction is never cancelled. It's always forbidden to receive on Malchut, that is called receiving in order to receive. And we say, for the light, it is unrelated to it receiving light, but only with the vessel. If it says there is no other vessel in Malchut, on that Malchut there was a restriction. Malchut operates only for a screen and reflected light. So who receives direct light? This is what you're asking. It is said Malchut receives on all the phases. On her own phase, she does not receive. What's her own phase? Receiving in order to receive. What did she do? What is it? What is receiving in order to receive used for? What is it for? I'll give an allegory. Why was man given the evil inclination called lust? To follow it or to overcome it? To use it or overcome it? Answer, yes or no? Student, to overcome. Rabash, to overcome. Meaning we say that Malchut, called the will to receive in order to receive, what? Why were we given this? To build a screen. It follows that. Why does Malchut What does Malchut's own face use for? Only as a screen, whereby making a screen, the reflected light comes out, and then she receives great pleasure in order to bestow. This is why she says later, I want to receive light and pleasure. Why? Because I want to bestow. This is called on her own face. She uses the screen and the reflected light. After that, who receives? Malchut. That's a different story. Let's begin again. It follows that Malchut consists of all the records that remain from the first expansion. Therefore, after the screen rose to Malchut of the Rosh, because there are no places. What does it mean, rose? Meaning, the screen was refined from all its coarseness in the guf, in the vessels of reception, and came into equivalence of form with Malchut of the Rosh. It is discerned that the screen that rose also consists of all the records that remained in Malchut, except for the record of phase 4. What's written here? He wants to explain to us that we should discern from what the lights leaving a record in their place, we should discern one, the record that remains in order to sustain the vessels, and the vessels with the records. He calls them old vessels that move to the new Parzuf. And we should also discern that the screen in the tabu of Malchut of the Guf is incorporated with each and every record that rises to the head Rosh of the degree. And the second Parzuf that comes out is on the basis of the screen and the records that went up. So we have two kinds of records. A record that remained in the vessels that he calls the vessel of Malchut, and a record that will be in the screen that rose to the Rosh of the degree. That's what he says here. Thus, it is discerned that the screen that rose also consists of all the records that remained in Malchut, except for the record of phase 4, because the last phase does not leave a record, as the Ari said above. What does it mean that it doesn't leave a record? There are many interpretations. We need to learn. Not leaving a record of a screen, so he can again demand, give me a screen on phase 4. No, on phase 4 I cannot. I overcome again, because it grew weaker through the clash between the inner light and surrounding light. This is called, the last phase does not leave a record, but the record of clothing, the record from the light, when the light was clothed in the vessel, that remains even from the level of Keter, and also from phase 4. This is why we always discern the record of clothing, which is the same record, and the record of coarseness, which is called female, called the deficiency, called wanting to draw. But the record of clothing is not called female. There is no deficiency that you can draw, extend. Why? There's no screen on it. Now you will understand the words of the Ari here, who says, after the reception of these Sfirot from the Emanator, they return to their place, except for Keter. Meaning, after the Masach of Malchut of the Guf rose to Malchut of the Rosh, called an emanator to the Guf, as it is known. How did she rise? There are no places. And it is through the equivalence of form with him. This is considered going up, rising. You therefore find that he connected and was incorporated with the screen in the Malchut of the Rosh, like one face. And since the screen in Malchut of the Rosh is always there in a coupling by striking, because there is no refinement in the Rosh, then the screen of the Guf that rose to the Rosh and was incorporated with it operates together with it for a coupling by striking and for raising reflected light from below upward, which is done in the Rosh, because it was incorporated in that same coarseness that there is in the screen in Malchut of the Rosh. What is written here? What are we speaking of? From? We must remember the rule that there's the ending Malchut and there's the copulating Malchut. The copulating Malchut means that she makes a coupling by striking. What is a coupling by striking? Two opposites. On the one hand, she says, I want to receive. Why? The coarseness of Malchut. Because of the restriction of the light, she says, I don't want to receive. And from that striking comes the coupling, the unification. Meaning she says, as much as she can aim in order to bestow, she will receive. But she is not received yet. Afterwards we say that Malchut goes and receives. You find what is Malchut in a coupling by striking? She says, I want to receive as much as I can bestow. This is the in potential. And that part expands from the path of the tabu, called Malchut of the Guf. What is Malchut of the Guf, which is called tabu? That part, if she receives, it'll be in order to receive. What does she say? I don't want to receive. This is called the ending Malchut.
And afterwards, he tells us, know that the ending Malchut, when she stops receiving, which is called equivalence of form, that rose to the Rosh, this is called the coupling Malchut. How can she say that I do not want to receive? Isn't her phase to end the level? Period. She is called Malchut, the ending Malchut, on the coarseness of phase 4. On phase 3, she never ended. The light has not yet shone on phase 3. Therefore, we say what we say, that Malchut of the Tabu, called the ending Malchut, that rose to the Rosh and was included in the coarseness from below upward. The meaning is that it rose to the Rosh and was included in phase 3. Therefore, we learn when the light departed that the Rosh of Galgalta made a coupling on coarseness level 3. The ending Malchut awakens which is already guf and has no place above. She's already receiving and descends below. Not on phase 4 called tabul, but phase 3 is called chazeh. And again, we learn now that what awakens with her is the phase that was included from the coarseness from below upward, that can make a coupling by striking on phase 3, and this chazeh that now makes a coupling on phase 3 emerges the rosh from the chazeh to the peh of galgalta, which he calls outer ab, and from the chazeh down to the tabul emerges its guf. So there is in the ending malchut called malchut of the tabul 2 phases. The ending malchut, phase 4, she was called ending, and now was incorporated in the coarseness of phase 3, which never ending that phase. And on this phase, it is called the malchut, the coupling malchut. His will to bestow to his created beings, let's say by way of illustration, he wants to give the created beings 100 kilos of pleasure. We say his will to bestow to the created beings, so he had to create existence from absence, deficiency. How great must the deficiency be? Specifically, 100 kilos. That when the 100 kilos of light, of pleasure, comes to the 100 kilos of deficiency, this is called filling all of reality. There's no other deficiency in reality that will not be filled. If so, what is needed further? Why did there need to be a restriction? We say, in spirituality, every innovation of form is a new phase. Therefore, after Malchut received the light, we learn just as Binah, just as Chokhmah, after receiving Chokhmah, we say Chokhmah at its end, as if she made a calculation, contemplated, and said, now I'm receiving. The emanator is the bestower. The branch wants to resemble its root. So she also wants equivalence of form. What did Chokhmah do at her end in equivalence of form? Light of Chasadim came. Turns out, this Chokhmah, we divide her before she made the calculation that she received, which is called everything from the side of the upper one, both the vessel and the light. Now she already made the calculation that she's the receiver. And this is called Binah. He comes and says, the root of Malchut is Binah. That is, after Malchut received the light, also made the calculation, like Binah, now I'm the receiver, he's the giver. I want equivalence of form. To do like Binah, to receive from Zaranpin, it doesn't work. There's an abundance from above that needs to be received. What did she say? Receiving in order to receive, I don't want that. Only how much do I want? How much I can receive in order to bestow. Is it clear so far? He comes and says there's a law. Why this law? Each and every one should ask himself. The maximum that she can receive from all this light, I call it 4 phases. More than this, she cannot receive. If she receives, it will be in order to receive, not in order to bestow. Now the question is asked, why can't they receive in order to bestow in the same measure that they want to receive in order to receive, you ask? Why? Because she receives only 4 phases, which is called a part, which is called inner light. And the main light remains outside in the secret of surrounding light. Why won't she receive everything in order to bestow? So he says there's a law. Everything that comes from the side of the emanator is finished at once. Therefore, to receive his will to bestow, who created reception, it comes from the side of the upper one. Therefore, there's no created being in the world that needs to make any preparation when seeing some great pleasure, to make a preparation to receive it. As soon as you see it, you want it. According to the magnitude of the pleasure, so is the arousal of the body. Now, what the lower one needs to intend in order to bestow, we've learned this, that it comes from the side of the work of the lower one. That's a bit lame. Why? Each and every one should ask himself. We say what she receives as the maximum, I give number 3, number 5. Doesn't matter, 1 unit. Number 3, maybe 5, the maximum is called 5. So number 3. And afterwards, each time, the power weakens. Therefore, we must say that in spirituality, there's a difference between each and every phase, both in quality and in quantity, which we also see in corporeality. I was yesterday at a wedding. I wanted to give a gift to the groom. I passed by an iron shop yesterday. I wanted to buy 1 kilo of iron to give him as a gift. Or to give him 50 grams of silver. Or 20 grams of gold. Or half a carat of a diamond. So I see how much it comes out approximately. That depends on the quality. This is one thing, and how much is another thing. So we say Malchut of the upper one is greater than all the Keter of the lower one. Even in corporeality, we see there are differences in quantity and quality. Therefore, the effort that a person must give to buy a kilo of iron, if he wants to buy a 1/4 kilo of gold, must give greater effort. Why? Can you ask such a thing? He asks. We have the terms Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, Yechida. He comes and says there's a rule. 1. We don't have more at the origin more than 2 lights and 2 vessels. We don't speak of the lights, we only speak of the vessels. The light, the abundance that is clothed in the vessel of reception, he calls it by the name light of Chokhmah. They rely on the verse, and wisdom shall give life to those who have it. A man's wisdom makes his face shine. Therefore, he calls them by the name Chokhmah. Since life is the face, therefore he calls it Chokhmah. Coming in vessels of receiving pleasure, that he wants to receive pleasure and delight. And we say this is called the light of the purpose of creation, to bestow to the created beings. That is, that they should receive within the longing for them, that they have a desire to receive pleasure and delight. The second light is called the light of correction. So in order for the correction of creation to happen, to have equivalence of form, what we understand as to not have a braid of shame. This is called light of chasadim. That is, it comes in a vessel which then wants to be a bestower, to do mercy. And so at the source, there's no more light of chokhmah, light of chasadim. Afterwards, more phases were added. For known reasons. There's afterwards light of chasadim with illumination of chokhmah, and afterwards was made light of chasadim without illumination of chokhmah, and after that was illumination of chokhmah without light of chasadim. There were 4 phases that were made afterwards, following the corrections. For example, what is the light of Yechidah? He doesn't explain. In part 3, he says this: we don't have more than 4 phases called Chokhmah, Binah, Zeranpin, Malchut. And there's Keter. This Keter, he says, is divided into 2 phases. One is called Atik, and one is called Arich. The Ari says, relying on the verse, and the earth was Tohu and Vohu. Tohu is called Atik, Bohu is called Arechanpin. What is Atik called Tohu, says the Ari, because it confounds the thoughts of people. On the one side it is called En Sof and Emanator, on the other hand it is called Created Being. This is Keter of the lower one. What is Arechanpin? Bohu. The 4 phases called Chokhmah, Binah, Zeranpin, Malchut come from Keter, but what is the Keter itself? Nothing. Only from it come all these 4 phases.
So,
what is the light of Yechidah?
what is the light of Yechidah? He doesn't explain. There are 4 phases of Yechidah that are united there, but in particular, there's no explanation. So what is Nefesh, what is Ruach, what is Neshama? He does explain in the interpretation of the words. Illumination of Chokhmah without Chasadim, because of Gvura, and Chasadim without illumination of Chokhmah. Sometimes he calls it 5 Chasadim in general, but these are only words. So we finished 236. You already know, we have to begin. Now he continues in page 236 in Hebrew. You already know. You already know that these records that remained in Malchut of the Guf are included in the screen that went up to the Rosh. How many records remained? If he demands to be given a screen to receive the lights that belong to these records, which are only up to coarseness of phase 3, because from coarseness of phase 4, no record remained that they could say that they want to draw that light again. The power of the screen weakened. Therefore, after the screen of the Guf was incorporated and came into the coupling of the screen of the Rosh, and received from it the coarseness from below upwards that is incorporated in it. Now we're talking about the second discernment. Then the records incorporated in it from Malchut of the Guf reawakened in it and returned to their coarseness as before. Meaning, the coarseness from above downward, as it applies in the Guf, in a way that initially the screen was incorporated in Malchut of the Rosh and grew coarser in the coarseness from below upward that is applied in the Rosh. Afterwards, the records included in the screen also grew coarser. In them, the coarseness was inverted and became from above downward. He is explaining to us the two phases we talked about before. One, that Malchut of the Tabu, called Malchut of the Guf, it's called the Malchut that ends the degree. He says Malchut of the Tabu says, I don't want to receive. Why? If I receive, it will be in order to receive. That screen, the ending Malchut, after the refinement. And we said that Malchut went up to the Rosh, Malchut of the Tabu, and was incorporated with all the records, meaning he wants to draw light on the records that remained in it. He interprets, what is a Rashimo, a record? Lust, meaning passion. If he had something that he has a flavor, a taste of what he had, that thing causes him passion to draw that light, that thing that he had before. But the last phase is lost. He was in holiness. If he knows that he doesn't have the strength to overcome, he doesn't want it immediately. Except what? Give me over 3 phases. There were 2 actions there. One, the screen with the records were incorporated in the copulating Malchut, Malchut of the Peh of the Rosh. Meaning, he wants to explain to us what he gained, the surrounding light that wants to shine, by canceling the ending Malchut. It's called Malchut of the Tabu. So if he gained a lot, the ending Malchut, Malchut of the Guf that rose to the Rosh, was incorporated in the screen and coarseness of the Rosh from below upwards. And made there was a coupling there, which the Rosh of Galgalta made on coarseness of the 3rd level. And then a screen came out with coarseness. It's called Malchut of the Tabu, her own face, which is Malchut of the Guf. That's why she went down. Not to 4, only to 3, to the Chazeh. But she, Malchut of the Tabu, called the ending Malchut, that stands at the Chazeh, was also incorporated with the copulating Malchut, from Malchut from below upwards. You find that the ending Malchut was said before, I don't want to receive anymore, now I do want to receive. Why? Because I want to bestow. This is called the Peh of Malchut of Rosh of Ab that stands at the Chazeh. So there are 2 actions here. The first action, called the main coarseness on the coupling that was at the Rosh of Galgalta, called Patzuf, the inner Patzuf Ab, which fills the empty vessels of Patzuf Galgalta. And then the incorporation is revealed. When she was incorporated in coarseness from below upwards, the copulating malchut, you find that the ending malchut now gained the copulating malchut. But he asks, how can that be? So he explains, the ending malchut, was on phase 4. On phase 3, she wasn't the ending malchut. So the copulating malchut is phase 3. From there, malchut of the guf is extended for ab itself. Clear?
Can I ask?
Rabash. First, Patzuf Galgalta made a coupling on the level of Keter and expanded in the vessels of the guf of Galgalta. Now, the Patzuf of 4 was refined, and the screen went up into the Rosh and demands filling over the last phase. I'm speaking about phase 3. So the Rosh of Galgalta made now a coupling on the coarseness of phase 3, called Patzuf Ab. Phase 3, and that phase that was extended up to phase 3, went out in the Rosh of Galgalta, and was drawn to the empty vessels of Patzuf Galgalta. What's missing for you that you should learn this? What do you gain by adding words?
The question is, the inner ab and the ab, phase 3 is not the same?
This is number 1, this is number 2. It's the same, of course.
That's what I'm asking. Their phase 3 is phase 3 of Keter, of Patzuf Keter, and here there's a general phase 3.
I don't understand your terminology. 3 of Keter, that's not a terminology. Ab, what came out of Patzuf Ab? We have to learn this Ab now shines in the vessel of Galgalta. What's missing? Learn it this way. You're saying 3 of Keter? I know what Chokhmah of Keter. Chokhmah of Keter has 5 phases. If you are confused, if I say Ab, you won't be confused. What would be missing if you learn this way? I like words that are added, not that we will confuse. If there's a question, I like to explain. Ab is Ab. Patzuf Galgalta. If you want to ask me about one light, I can tell you it's one light as well. Meaning, even a light that shines in a light in this world is also one light. Except what? It depends on the recipients. And then I'll know what you're aiming for.
Well, it's discussed several times.
Well, we finished 236. You have to begin with, you should know. You should know the great difference between coarseness from below upwards and coarseness from above downwards. Because from below upwards means resistance to clothing. Nevertheless, there is no relation of clothing there at all. Hence, she's discerned as the Rosh, called Keter or Ensof. What is written here? Here, he wants to explain to us what the Ari says. Reflected light rises from below upwards, and then it's written Malchut of the Rosh expands from her and within her, from above downwards. From above downwards, the Ari calls Rosh. It's called Keter. It's called Ein Sof. He comes and asks, what is from below upwards? So he explains it this way in a different place. Above is the giver. The giver is called above. What does he give? He increases importance. When are they called receiving? When the abundance comes from above downward, meaning that the receivers receive abundance from him, then it's called clothing. As we say, my mind clothes it, meaning I understand it. We're speaking about, when we talk about subtle things, we call it clothing instead of receiving. Received what? I accepted what you're telling me. This is called doing. Here it's called understood. Here it's called clothing. My mind clothes it. Therefore, it is called that from below upwards, the lower one wants to give the abundance again upwards, meaning he doesn't want to receive. If he doesn't want to receive, then it's called that it's not called clothing. Why is it called Rosh, head or mind? Precisely by not wanting to receive. He makes corrections. He will have the ability later to receive from above downwards. That's why it's a Rosh, the root from which afterwards there will be expansion. And it's precisely by not wanting to receive from below the lower one upwards, he wants to give the abundance back upwards. And it's called Ein Sof. If it doesn't clothe, there's no limitation. You find that the light as it is in itself without clothing of the lower one, there's no change in the light. As the light was called Ein Sof at the beginning of its emanation. Explanation. Ein Sof is a name. As he said, what we don't attain, we don't define by a name. The first time we begin to speak of a connection between the Creator and the created beings, called His will to do good to His creations. He created the created being existence from absence. That created being is called Malchut. That Malchut is called receiving in order to receive. That Malchut didn't place any end, and the light was shining inside that Malchut. So the light was called Ein Sof, no end. No change was done on the part of the upper one as well. He wants to receive into the receiving in order to receive. So you find that name remains. In the light, there are no changes. All the changes we give later are on the part of the receivers. It turns out that if the lower one doesn't receive it, then the light remains in its initial name, Ein Sof. That's why it's called Rosh, head, and it's called Ein Sof, and it's called Keter. Keter is called root, from which there is later expansion. And all this is only when he doesn't want to receive it and returns it afterwards, which is called from below upwards. The lower one wants to give upwards. This is what he says here, again, inside. You should know the great difference between coarseness that is used from below upwards, which he doesn't want to receive, and coarseness from above downwards, which he does receive, from the upper one to the lower one. Because from below upwards means resistance to clothing. He doesn't want to receive it. Hence, there's no relation of clothing at all. Why? He doesn't want to. Therefore, it is regarded as Rosh, root, and is called Keter or Ein Sof. One. Its opposite is the coarseness from above downwards. Below downwards means from the upper one to the lower one. The lower one does receive. It means complete clothing of the direct light, the abundance. That's why it's called guf, body, which is called receiving or emanated being. There's already a recipient. It is never called Ein Sof or emanator. Who? The body, the guf. That discernment applies to the Rosh and the guf in all the Parzufim in the worlds. Even in the world of Asiya, the Rosh of the world of Asiya, Keter of the world of Asiya, is also called Ein Sof. As long as it doesn't receive it, it's only named after the light. Light is called Ein Sof. There are no changes in the light. You're asking, why is it called coarseness from below upwards? There's a rule. When we speak of the Rosh, we speak of the roots. There must be someone who attains. Malchut without Malchut cannot be spoken of. If the coarseness called Malchut, receiving in order to receive, does not want to receive, then we are already speaking of the coarseness. Except he doesn't want to attain. He also doesn't attain. But if there's someone who is, so that will to receive sometimes does receive. So you call it sometimes Malchut that is called receiving in order to receive, doesn't want to receive at all. What is in the Rosh? What is the Rosh? We learned Malchut of the Rosh. It's when the abundance comes from the upper one. It comes without any limitations. But Malchut of the Rosh made a screen. She doesn't want to receive. She calculates how much she can receive in order to bestow. This she will receive. And what she cannot aim in order to bestow, this she will not receive. For the time being, she hasn't received anything. You find that the coarseness that he makes all the calculations, does he receive already? He still doesn't receive. It's called that now he engages in, he works in from below upwards. I don't want to receive. Now I'm making calculations how much I will be permitted to receive, how much I will be able to receive. For the time being, I'm not receiving anything. That state, the coarseness in the will to receive, operates not for not reception. Afterwards, after all the calculations, he says, Malchut expands from her and within her. Meaning, we can say that there are 10 Sfirot only in the Rosh. What is the Guf? Malchut that begins to receive, find that the whole Guf is only Malchut. This is called from below upward, from above downwards, meaning Malchut begins to clothe and receive. You find that from below upwards, of whom is he speaking? If there's no coarseness, there's no Rosh. Who says there is a Rosh? There must be someone who says, I don't want. Also, this is called not wanting.